Hey everybody, it's Tom, WA2IVD. Well, we're trying a different arrangement here, slightly different, to see if this makes filming the radio while we're traveling any better. I just wanted to give you an update on APRS and how this has been doing since we fixed the lockup problem, or I should say discovered, I don't know, understood. However you want to describe it, the lockup problem is better. I've been running this thing for more than a week now and have had no issues with lockups. I can change frequencies, I can go on HF and everything while APRS is going, and everything seems to be working just fine. I did have another issue that cropped up with the APRS. Receive APRS was fine, but the beaconing, I have this set to smart beaconing, and I will show you here in another segment what smart beaconing is and how you set that up. Let's take a look at how we set up smart beaconing and how that works. We need to press and hold the function button to get into the menus. We're going to go to page 3 on the menu screens, and we need to go to APRS settings. We're going to go into settings, and then we need to go into the beacon settings, so you press done. We have the beacon type set to smart, and then if you look down here, you have settings for auto beacon, smart beacon, and then beacon text. We're not going to worry about these other ones right now. We're going to look at the smart beacon and look at the options that you have. So you have smart low speed. That's the speed that triggers the slow rate. We'll look at that in a sec. Smart high speed, and that's the speed that triggers the high rate. The smart slow rate, which is every 30 minutes. So if you're going below 5 miles an hour, it's going to send a beacon every 30 minutes. If you are going above 50 miles an hour, it will start beaconing every 120 seconds. And then once you go above the fast rate, I believe it'll stay there until you go below the slow rate. Then we have smart turn angle, and that's set to 28 degrees. So if you turn more than 28 degrees, that triggers the turn angle settings. Let's scroll down here and we'll look at those. And then you have smart turn slope, 26. I've left this at the defaults. The smart turn slope can be anything from 1 to 255. And then smart turn time, 30 seconds. We'll talk about that in a second. So the angle, as I said, that is how much your angle has changed. The smart turn slope can be a little bit confusing. The way smart turn slope works is it's essentially how quickly do you go through the 28 degrees. So for example, if you are going down a highway and you're going on a very gentle curve on the highway where you're slowly turning, how long does it take you to make the 28 degree turn? If you take that 28 degrees over, say, a minute or two, it won't consider that a 28 degree turn because this slope is basically resetting the starting point. So essentially this is designed to detect a hard turn, like you're going down the street and then you're turning onto another street. That's what this is supposed to detect. So how does this all work? Well, the slow and high rates are pretty straightforward. It'll beacon every 30 minutes or it'll beacon every 120 seconds. There's no distance involved here, and other than 120 seconds at 55 miles an hour is, 2 miles-ish. The turn angle, again, it beacons if you turn more than that many degrees within a certain amount of movement, like recognizing a turn on a street. And then the smart turn time, the 30 seconds is the default. Again, I've left most of these at the default. That is how long after a beacon will it do a turn beacon. So for example, let's say I'm approaching a turn or I'm approaching a stop and I'm going to turn, and it just beaconed right now, and then I make my turn. It's not going to do another beacon for at least 30 seconds. So this is just to make sure that your radio isn't sending too much traffic into the APRS system. So that's smart beaconing. Smart beaconing was developed by a third party. I will put a link to their site in the description, and I'm putting the name of it on the bottom of the screen because, frankly, I don't remember their name right now off the top of my head. Anyway, that's how smart beaconing works, and that basically allows you to leave a trail of breadcrumbs, if you will, when you're traveling somewhere where you get pretty good information when you're making turns or changing directions or every time you've gone a certain distance at the same time without overwhelming the APRS system and beaconing every 10 seconds or every 20 seconds. And then one final thing I'll say about APRS and beaconing. I did get a comment from one viewer that said, well, what's the point of APRS other than it sends your latitude and longitude? And actually, that's mostly the point. APRS can do some other things. You can send messages. There are weather station APRS stations that send out the temperature and the wind speed and things like that are generally fixed stations. But mostly APRS is used for telling the position of a station as you're moving. Well, why would you want that? Our local APRS group here encourages people that have APRS capability to use it when we are doing communications at an event, so that the net control in the vehicle, they have an APRS, a computer in there that's putting up the APRS positions on a map. So it's very easy for a net control to tell where stations are, particularly if you're doing an event where many of the stations aren't stationary. Things such as a bike race or, a marathon or a 10K run, those kinds of things, having APRS on the different communicating stations can be very handy. So that's certainly one use for it anyway. All right, let's go back to the rest of the other video. But with smart beaconing on, what I was finding is the only time the radio beaconed is when I arrived at my destination, when I started out at my destination and first turned the radio on. Smart beaconing is supposed to beacon when you change directions, have a major change in speed, and so on. I'm sitting at a stop sign here, and I'm going to turn, and this should beacon when I change directions. And we will see if that works now. There we go. The radio just beaconed. So the trouble was the GPS that I was using. Some of you may have seen the video I did back in August where I put together a little do-it-yourself GPS, and that seemed to be working because the radio showed the GPS lock, and when I received any APRS beacons, it correctly showed my location compared to the other station, or it correctly showed the other station's direction and distance. So it certainly seemed like the radio was getting the GPS data, but GPS units send data in what is called sentences, and there's like 4 or 5 or 6 standard GPS sentences. And apparently I must have turned off one, or maybe this one didn't have it. I did change some of the standard sentences so it wouldn't send them because it seemed like information that didn't have anything to do with APRS. So maybe I was wrong there. At any rate, I got a different GPS unit, and a shout out to Jeff, one of the viewers, who gave me another GPS unit. And a shout out to, oh gosh, I'm going to forget his call, M0, I forget, he's the fellow in Great Britain, has a YouTube channel. I will put it on the bottom of the screen here, and I will put a link to his video in the description. He talked about another GPS unit that was a plug and play. You can buy this thing on Amazon, plug it into the radio, it's got the right connector. And so I tried that. Jeff gave me one, and I've been using that one. And now the smart beaconing seems to work properly. Everything seems to be fine. GPS receive still seems to be fine. So everything is a lot better now. Anyway, that's really all I wanted to cover this time, was the segment on how you set up smart beaconing and what it is, and a little update on APRS and beaconing with this radio. And this is going to be the last APRS update for a while, and then we'll get back into some of the other features of the radio and using some of the other features of the radio. I hope this was of some help to some of you. And as always, thanks for watching. I'm Tom, WA2IVD, and this is Ham Radio A to Z.